It's not to say that I don't put them down from time to time, but most of the time.
It's a shame.
Coming out of the PowerPoint maybe.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Yeah, probably shouldn't have mentioned it at the start, because what happens is people just end up looking at your eyebrows and don't really listen to what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
What you need to do, little bits of fur, move up and down.
Okay, sorry about that.
Will involve having my eyebrows up. It's not to say that I don't put them down from time to time, but most of the time. Yeah, probably shouldn't have mentioned it at the start, because what happens is people just end up looking at your eyebrows and don't really listen to what you're saying. So what you need to do, little bits of fur, move up and down. But it is important to know where your eyebrows are when you're talking. Always have your eyebrows up when you're asking someone where the toilets are. Do you know the toilets are? Toilets? Don't be going, do you know the toilets are? Or, is that your daughter? Is it? Is that your daughter? Do you know where the toilets are?
So that gives a bit of light relief hearing about that and sort of seeing, but then learning that they can perhaps change the atmosphere at home just by trying to smile a little more. Actually, when I showed this to some Japanese training, they all laughed and thought it was funny. But then they said, but why is it funny? And I think I think it is funny anyway, but part of the reason why it's so funny to us is that because he speaks with a Northern Ireland, and people with my age, he speaks with a Northern Ireland accent. And so it's even more threatening, the threatening aspect. Do you think that could be, Paul? He just so you've got that relief of it not happening. Anyway, there we go. So we spend a bit of time discussing all of this with parents. So, and then we're moving on to how we want them to try and change their emotional reactions to the illness. These automatic reactions that, as I say, occur on inpatient units too. So we know that it's very common when you've got the eating disorder symptoms that the carer becomes anxious and then responds in this way with high expressed emotion, which is either criticism and hostility or emotional over-involvement. We indicate that although these are natural, they might be counterproductive, because the first one, showing the rhino response, just encourages the eating disorder voice to sort of argue against. So the more you give all the reasons you can, they've got to eat, they've got to do this, the anorexic voice will be just saying, no, I don't need to do that. And the more they say it, the more they'll do it. So that doesn't help, it just digs in the behaviour more. And then the overprotection, not only do you have your daughter in your pouch, but you've got the anorexia in the pouch, so it can keep the anorexia going, because it can feel a rather nice position to be looked after, to be given a lot of care. And then we've already looked at that accommodating and enabling, how you can bully and get the whole family running around the eating disorder, or even supporting the eating disorder behaviours. And so by giving them the problems with these behaviours, that hopefully gets them motivated to try and change them. And we give a questionnaire on accommodation, and everybody, all the carers in the room, will be showing some degree of accommodating. You know, they'll have to eat a meal with the daughter, even if they're going to go out later, they'll buy special foods, they'll perhaps have a separate fridge because she won't put things in the same fridge, they might have separate cooking things, she'll eat in a room, you know. It started because me aware of it, you know, hearing about a mother who had to build an extra kitchen because her son was so cross at not being able to go in the kitchen freely. He said he was going to leave. So her solution was to have 2 kitchens. So you'll find all sorts of very weird and wonderful ways in which the families are totally bullied.
Can I just ask something?
Yeah?
Near the still face.
Yeah.
Have you ever raised that with the patients? I mean, I remember once raising it with a group of patients.
Yeah.
They were a bit offended, actually.
Oh, really?
I did it the wrong way, maybe.
Yeah.
What do you find?
Well, I mean, I've done it individually, and you know, and that's when we got, you know, these responses. Yeah, I perhaps haven't done it, but sometimes we do these education groups with it.
With the patients?
Yes, with the patients and carers perhaps together. Yeah. So I haven't. Yes, what were they cross about that they sorted? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait. So this illustrates how. So all these secondary problems, you know, the mirroring. If you're very angry and upset, the mirroring of emotion just gets the whole thing going. On the other hand, if you're an ostrich, it looks as though you don't care. So whatever sort of position you take up, often within the family people take opposite positions, and that leads to fragmentation and fathers and mothers separating, doing different things, or siblings, etc. And so the individual gets more and more fragmented themselves, and with a fractured family too. And so the last bit is to try and give skills for change, such as motivational interviewing, emotional focused family therapy, where we teach them how to recognise emotions and how to validate those, and then skills of making behaviour change. And we've put the sort of curriculum for these into books and videos, as we've talked about, and we've often given them in terms of guided self-care as well, with telephone support or online support. And we've been doing various trials, often on lowish budgets. It's very difficult to get sort of a lot of therapy, so the therapies have been very much guided self-help because that's cheaper to deliver. And the first study, the multi-centre study, was on adult inpatient units, and so you can see the patients there, aged about 26, 7 years of illness, BMI 14, and their units all the way around the UK. And what we found was that carer burden was decreased with an effect size of about 0.5, which is moderate. And the carers' numbers of emotional behaviours, you know, their criticism or their overprotection was reduced as well, about 0.3 to 0.5 effect size. So by giving this information to the carers, it reduced their burden. But also we did find some things in terms of services, in that the length of admission was decreased from 148 to 168 beds, and the number of readmissions were reduced in the first year. So it was having an impact on relapse by sharing these skills with the parents. And this shows the treatment as usual here, and that's the echo group with fewer readmissions. We next did a study, again a multi-centre study of simple guided self-help one, and this was with the younger group. So these were 16, duration of 1.8 and a BMI of 17. So these are all CAMS, mainly CAMS services from all over the UK. And of course, we'd have expected that because the NICE guidelines in 2004 did discuss using family treatment, that a lot of these units would have been doing family treatment. So we're perhaps adding a very simple intervention on top of perhaps sort of very intensive family work they were having. But we were just interested whether just giving more skills to carers was of use in this way. And so the skills were again given as a book and given as telephone coaching, the ECHO group, and the treatment as usual group was whatever treatment each place had. And what you can see is at the top carer time, a baseline, they were giving 49 hours a month, and 12 months later it had reduced in both groups, but it reduced much further in the group giving the ECHO. So although you're getting parents to do more, they do more but then have to spend less time with it. So it's not as though you're giving them more work and burden to do. And this is carers' skills, so you can see they're about similar baseline, whereas they increase more in the ECHO group. We got less difference. It wasn't significant, but there was a reduction in the accommodating behaviour in the ECHO group as well. So the things that we were targeting, making them more skillful at delivering help, not accommodating to the illness, were helpful and reduced their time. And again, admissions were reduced, 12 versus 16%, but not significantly in this group. Perhaps if we'd had more, we would have seen a significance. And when we looked at patients' social function, we also found that there were some differences in that the number of peer problems were reduced in those who'd had carers given this information, and their pro-social behaviours were increased. So we were seeing this sort of knock-on effect by improving the relationship with the parents was perhaps improving wider social relationships. And more recently, we've been trying to give information both to the parents and to the individuals to help with transition out of hospital. And this is a preliminary study we did where we gave them both materials about recovery, materials about change. And you can see the patient group are typical adults with anorexia, BMI 13.7, so quite severe, age 24, and a duration of 7 years. And we just tracked them over 3 months. And what we found that was by giving carers and patients this extra information, the length of admission was decreased compared to the audit results, and we got better weight gain. And so this is quite exciting in that it might suggest that by just sharing our skills, we can reduce the service needs.
Sorry, was that weight gain of 0.11 kilogram a week or an extra weight gain of 0.11 on top of what the NHS were doing without?
An extra. Yeah. I think so, but yes. But good point. So that this was just a pilot, and we're now doing a bigger study, a triangle, which Paul is helping with on that. But you see that for adults, people do find it unusual being invited to play a role and being asking for help with the role. So the partner doing the echo mantras felt it was a turning point to get treated as a couple. So, we talk about that it's so important for the parents themselves to have their own oxygen so that they can manage the stress that they are faced with. So by giving them some information and some skills, that can be their oxygen so that then they can help the individual. And we've been trying to experiment with different sorts of intervention. So this is a systematic review looking at the impact on various, this is on carer burden. So the first one is just self-help alone, then this is a workshop, this is